مزيدا والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنام وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Praise our Lord Most High, and we ask Him to send copious, unlimited and eternal blessings and salutations upon our beloved Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Amma ba'd, qala al-mu'allif rahimahullah radiyallahu anhu wa ankum nafa'ana bihi wa bikum. He says, وَعَلَيْكَ بِالْحَذْرِ مِنَ الْمِرَاءِ وَالْجِدَالِ فَإِنَّهُمَا يغران الصدور ويوحشان القلوب ويولدان العداوة والبغضاء فإن مراك أو جادلك محق فعليك بالقبول منه لأن الحق أحق أن يتبع أو مبطل فعليك بالإعراض عنه لأنه جاهل والله تعالى يقول وأعرض عن الجاهلين. Can you see a copy? Can everyone see a copy of the text?
There's one more book here.
Can you see a copy?
Yeah.
Alright, so he says on page 99, is it not?
98.
98. Be wary, right at the bottom of the last paragraph. Be wary of argumentation and wrangling, for they cast rancor into the breasts of humans, alienate hearts, and lead to enmity and hatred. If anyone argues against you and has right on her side, accept what she says, for truth must always be followed. And if on the other hand she is wrong, then leave her, for she is ignorant. And God the Exalted has said, and turn away from the ignorant. So, this is kind of one of the things, unfortunately, that in our day and age where everyone not only has an opinion, but has followers to back up their opinion, and likes and hearts and enjoys and whatever else, to back up their position. Mate, I've got people behind me. Remember the old saying? It's a bit of a racist saying. What is it? 1 million Chinese can't be wrong, or 10 million, or whatever the saying was. There was always the saying they used to say back in the day. That many people can't be wrong. So, as it's been stated, when it came to the recent elections in several countries throughout the world, they talked about populist movements, which are movements about popularity, about contemporary issues that people get excited about that aren't really based on any fact or any authoritative sort of research. And unfortunately, that is made thing. When we were young, we used to always argue about because we were jahil. Like the Imam said, we were ignorant. So ignorant people, they're always arguing. But educated people, they don't argue. There's no need to argue. They raise their point. They hear the other side. They agree or they don't agree, and that's it. They accept that another person has another opinion. But an ignorant person, because they might not be ignorant, generally speaking, they may be ignorant about a particular subject. They can't accept another person's opinion on that subject because they don't have the breadth of understanding to actually accept another person's. They can only accept their own because they don't actually have any facts about it. There's no real information about that subject, the subject matter at hand. So that's what the Imam says, that person. Anyway, we'll get to that in a sec. But now it's even more popular. And I get those phone calls all the time. Oh, someone's like pumped up. You can hear him on the other side. Shaykh, what's the answer to this question? I'm like, who's this? Normally I don't say that. What do you want? How'd you get my number? Why? Because calm them down a little bit. And then at the end it's always invariably, look, I'm not a scholar, but that's what I thought it was. Well, if you're not a scholar, why are you giving your opinion? Why are you putting yourself in a scenario where if someone does what you say, on the day of judgment, they're going to come and say, oh yeah, Allah, I did this because this person told me it was halal, and this person said that they have some authority over the subject. Which just takes us to what goes on a lot of the TV shows that we watch, especially when it comes to subjects other than Islam, whatever. But when it comes to subjects, they put people on, they're talking, they're not authorities. Yeah, they might be the president of an organisation. Jazakumullah kulla khair. Good on them, great. But that doesn't mean if you're the president of an organisation that you're an authority on Islam, that you can go and talk to the whole wide world on the inner workings of Islamic jurisprudence. Unfortunately, that is delegated to people who have permission to do so. And then they've got these other, like, what do you call it, like, progressive groups that say, oh, like, we do our own gatherings of Qur'an, our own halaqah, our own circles of Quranic teaching, using, the tafsir that we want to use. Well, that's great, but that's for you. If you want to do that, but at the same time, if you don't have a scholar, someone who knows an authority on the subject, they can't guide you through the meaning of the book. Especially if you're going to read the Qur'an and make tafsir. That's it. That's what our deen is based on, Qur'an and the Hadith. So, unfortunately, people, because of their ignorance, they find it easy to argue. And then don't forget, the person on the other side is also ignorant. Both of them. Because if the person on the other side was learned, they'll easily explain to that individual and set that individual straight. So it goes both ways. Just don't do it. The people of Allah don't get into arguments. They don't do those things. One time they tried to trick Imam Bukhari and Muhammad bin Ismail. And they took him to an area and they started saying the hadith all wrong. So all the riwayah and the dirayah and the riwayah. So the riwayah is the actual words and the dirayah is the chain of narration. So they started saying all the chain of narration wrong, all mixed up. So one guy got up and he said 10, another guy got up and said 10, another guy got up and said 10, until 100 hadith had been narrated. And Imam Bukhari, what did he say? He said, I've never heard of those hadith. And everyone started laughing and, the place turned into a raucous sort of, they were trying to insult him. That's what happened to the scholars. Do you think the scholars had universal acceptance? Very rarely. If the people accepted them, the administration, and they're Muslim, the Khalifa in other words, the Khalifa that were all crying, we want Khalifa, we want... Yeah, he would either bash them or jail them or try and embarrass them. What is it that, why don't we understand our deen? Because we don't understand our history, we don't understand our jurisprudence. We take one little aspect of the deen and we go running with it and we think this is the deen. It's not. It's an aspect of the deen. The Khalifa have done plenty of damage as they have done good. And many of them were alcoholics or womanizers or. That's the reality. Having a Khalifa is not going to save or going to fix up all our problems. Fix yourself, mate. Once you fix yourself, then your problems will be solved. And Allah will fix the others. Don't worry about them. Make dua for Allah will take care of them. That's the start. That's where we start off with, and leave the rest to Allah. But if we're all worried about everyone else, and then it's easy to forget myself and my misgivings and misguidings. Anyway, then Imam Bukhari, he got up and he said, but what I've heard is this hadith, and he fixed it up, put the people in the right place that had narrated it to the right hadith, and he said 100 of them. He knew them more. He knew what they were referring to. And then he left. Because Imam Bukhari, every town he went to, this is Imam Bukhari, every town he went to, either they kicked him out in his lifetime. Either they kicked him out, or the people became conflicted, and a conflict arose between the people as should we leave him or should we not leave him. In other words, should we allow him to enter our town or not? Because back in the days, the towns had sewers, they had these big walls around them, so that animals couldn't get in, and warring parties and whatever else. That's how it used to be. In England, that's how it was as well, and all around the world, they had the big moats and the walls and whatever else. There was no moats in the desert, but they had the big walls. And then to go in, you had to go past the guard. And then once people would know who the new person is, it's not like now, mashallah, millions of people every single day just commuting from one area to the other. You catch the same train every day for years, and probably don't even see the same person twice, or rarely do you. So they said, when they heard it was Imam Bukhari, oh, no, we don't want him. Or the people who fall into conflict, and the scholars don't stay around when there's conflict. When there's conflict, they move, because the point of the deen is not to have people fall into conflict, it's for people to unite, or one of the points of the deen. Okay, so it's not what we think it is. That's why don't worry about that stuff. Everyone look at themselves. And the other thing is, the people of Allah don't get into quarrels, because the Imam will talk about what it does. They cast rancor into the breasts of people. Rancor, in terms of... see, I forgot to explain it to you. It says, عَلَيْكَ بِالْحَذْرِ مِنَ الْمِرَاءِ وَالْجِدَالِ. They're two different things. Jidal is like to argue. And mira is to put someone on show. Right? So let's say, for example, someone comes up, and it's haram, al-mira is haram when it comes to the Qur'an. So someone will come along and say, like, there's, we've talked about it previously, there's different ways to recite the Qur'an. The Prophet ﷺ talked about it. Okay, so one of them, as-sirat al-mustaqim, sirat with the sin. And another the way we read it is as-sirat with the sad. So it's a different letter. They're both correct. So if someone was to be one of those people who, amirat, like marat comes from marat, to show, who wants to put someone on show, they'll read as-sirat like we read, as-sirat with the sad, and someone will say, no, it's wrong, it's sin. That's wrong. But the point is that it's not wrong. But what they're trying to do is try and discredit somebody else by creating doubt. That's the definition of it. To discredit someone by creating doubt. So the difficulty with that is that if someone does that with the Qur'an, saying, no, it's wrong. Well, is it wrong? No, it's not. They're both correct. They're both correct. So that being the case, and the person who's doing that mara'a, they could fall out of the fold of Islam by what they say. So that's why we definitely don't do it about the Qur'an. We don't need to discuss the Qur'an unless we're an authority on the Qur'an and we've been given permission to talk about it by one of the scholars. Other than that, Amira is, someone says something about, whatever, organic food's good for you. They say, oh, what do you mean? They still use pesticides, and so they throw doubt in every conversation, even though they don't really know the truth of the matter. But they're just trying to show that they know and that others don't know. Whereas jidal is where two people are arguing like a debate, a bit closer to a debate. It's not a debate. It's when two people are arguing, but they're actually trying to get to some sort of point. Whereas the mirat, they're just trying to cause doubt, and that's the difference between the two. So jidal, they're trying to argue, but if they're not intelligent, if they're not learned, if they're not authoritative about the subject matter, whatever it may be, then of course they're not going to get to any sort of conclusion. And that's one thing that we really don't understand. The more learned that a person is in a particular subject, the less they talk about any other subject. And if other subjects are raised, they're the first people to say, I don't know. They're the first people to say, I don't know. Oh, well, sorry, mate, this is what I know about. The rest of it is conjecture to me, or I have no knowledge over it. But what is it? There's a saying, it goes like, the ignorant person is always sure of their opinion, but the learned person is never sure of their opinion. Because they're ignorant, that's all they know. So there's no other possibility that can enter into their minds. So that's it. 100. That's why they fight and carry on and whatever else. But the learned person understands there's always different possibilities. So they leave it like that. So what it does is when two people start arguing about a point and neither of them can prove they're right, then it creates enmity, it creates rancor. They start to hate each other. And of course that's the antithesis of what the Prophet ﷺ was sent with. He was sent as a mercy to humankind. Hopefully, inshallah, to allow them to unite, for human beings to unite and be near one another in proximity and also in spiritual nearness to each other. So that's what it causes. And it ends up breeding. It alienates people and leads to enmity and hatred. As we said, if anyone argues against you and has right on his side. So in other words, if someone says something, but again, there has to be a certain level of knowledge to accept that someone else is right. If someone's completely ignorant about a subject, like if someone starts talking to me about pregnancy or something, how women get, the cycle, I would have a clue. So whatever they say, I have to basically accept. Because I don't know anything about the subject. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is that you do know something about the subject, and two people talk about it, you're talking, and then you realise, the other person is more correct than I am. So that's a little bit harder to do. Because when you know nothing, it's easy to say I don't know anything. But when you know something, or you're considered to be somewhat of an expert in a particular subject, it's hard to say that someone else is correct. That's the first. And the other one is, and Imam Shafi'i was always like that. Imam Shafi'i, whenever he used to debate anyone, not argue, debate, he always to make dua, Ya Allah, bring the truth on the other person's tongue. Firstly, the other person will be able to accept it. That's the first. Someone says the truth themselves, it's easy to accept it, whereas someone else says it, they may not. And then secondly, it won't lead to enmity, because Imam Shafi'i, he will accept. And if the other person is wrong, as we said, وَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَعْرِضْ الْإِعْرَاض, give him room. In other words, literally speaking, just give him room. Let him, no worries, bro, be ignorant as you want. Catch you later. وَإِذَا خَاطَبُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. They speak to the people and they realize that they're ignorant. They don't turn it into an argument. They don't turn it into rancor. They don't turn it into difficulty. They say, no worries, mate. Salama. Assalamu alaikum. That's one interpretation. They say, no worries, assalamu alaikum. And they say salama, they leave peace between the hearts. So they talk to the person down, so to speak. They're going off this day, no worries, okay. Talk them down until the person's calmed down, and then they say, all right, I've got to get going, got to go, business, whatever. Catch you another time, nice talking to you, whatever. And then he says, وَعَلَيْكَ بِتَرْكِ الْمِزَاحِ رَأْسًا فَإِنْ مَزَحْتَ نادرا على نية تطيب قلب مسلم فلا تقول إلا حقا قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم لا تماري أخاك ولا تمازحه ولا تعده موعدا فتخلفه. Says on 99, page 99, renounce all joking. If very occasionally you do joke to assuage a Muslim's heart, then speak only the truth. The Messenger of God, may peace and blessings be upon him, has said, neither argue with your brother nor quarrel, and do not make him a promise, then break it. This is a hard one for us. Like we're kind of jovial in nature. We like to have a good time, and we like to have fun, and we like to joke. It's natural. It's a natural thing. But what did the Prophet say, alayhi salatu wasalam? He said, if you knew what I knew, لَضَحَكْتُمْ قَلِيلًا وَلَبَكَيْتُمْ كَثِيرًا. That if in other words, if Allah Azza wa Jalla showed us the things that He showed the Prophet of Allah, or if Allah taught us the things He taught the Prophet of Allah, then it'd be rare that we'd laugh and we'd cry a lot more. Because of the reality of the life we live in and the reality of the life of the next world, and that, ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يرى ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يرى ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يرى. Whoever does an atom's weight of good deed, there'll be recompense for it. And whoever does an atom's weight of ill or evil will be taken into account for it. It's heavy duty. So if a person has that over their heads, how often should they laugh and carry on? It says, if very occasionally you do to assuage, what does assuage mean? A Muslim's heart. So no one read ahead then, that's what you're saying, no one read ahead and read. That's the first time I've seen that word myself.
Just soothe their heart.
Yeah, basically it's when they're in a difficult situation. It comes from a Latin word that means sweet, to sweeten the situation, to make them feel that it's not as bad as it is. Sometimes jokes have to be said, or funny words or whatever, so the person feels comfortable. Okay? Then speak only the truth. And we know the Prophet of Allah said, I am the guarantor for the house in the middle of Jannah, for the person who in the middle of paradise, for the person who gives up lying, even if he or she is joking. So that's a big one for us, because sarcasm is the head of all. All it does is make you really it just makes you look stupid. That's all it really does. But it's acceptable to look like that these days, so it's funny. Then the Messenger of God ﷺ has said, neither argue with your brother, nor quarrel, and do not make him a promise and then break it. So that's going back to the previous hadith as well. Don't argue. There's no point. If someone's got an opinion, leave them to their opinion. If you're really concerned about them, make dua for them. Wake up before Fajr, cry to Allah, and ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to change their hearts. Quarrel, in other words, when the people don't agree about it, then the next stage from an argument is a quarrel, which could turn physical it could turn that someone backbites another, or someone defames another, or whatever the case might be. And then the other one is, don't make promises you can't keep. And we spoke about that last week, so there's no need to go into it. وعليك بإجلال المسلمين وتوقيرهم لا سيما أهل الفضل منهم كالعلماء والصلحاء والشرفاء ومن له شيبة في الإسلام. To respect Muslims, especially people of merit such as the scholar, the righteous, the nobleman, and those whose hair has grayed in Islam. It's a very literal translation. Okay? So, al-ijlal it's not just about, we say Allah, Jalla Jalaluhu. So, al-ijlal is greater than just to respect. It's almost to the stage of glorifying. It's almost to that stage that the sanctity of a believer is akin to the sanctity of the Prophet of Allah or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not exactly, but it's akin to it. It's a friend of it. It's similar to it. It's like it. So that should be the status of every believer that we meet. Every single Muslim that we meet. That's how our heart should be towards them. That they're better than us. They're better than me. That's how I should think to my brothers and sisters, my Muslim brothers and sisters. Especially people of merit. The scholar, so that the Shaykh, the Imam, the alim, it's mashallah, what do the ulama say? Lahm al-ulama masmuma. The meat, the flesh more correctly, of the scholars is poisoned. So already we know that backbiting someone is like what? Okay, eating their dead flesh. And then it's even worse for a scholar because the dead flesh isn't just dead and disgusting, it's also poisoned. They're the warathat al-ulama, they're the inheritors of prophethood. So it's like talking about a prophet, because they've inherited that knowledge. But for us today, it's easy to do. We just start ragging on this guy, and we don't like an opinion he said, and maybe we do or don't understand it, but we don't like it. Or it's a sister, and we don't like her attitude, or whatever the case might be. The righteous people, the sulahat, the people that their righteousness is known, through either they give a lot of money fi sabilillah, or they assist people by doing whatever they do, or they've been known that in an area where people didn't pray, or didn't wear hijab, or whatever the case. That's a big thing for sisters. Like sisters, I know where I was the other day, I saw a sister, I was in the North Shore, and I was in a place where there's no way you'd expect to see a sister wearing hijab, and there's a sister, mashallah, wearing the hijab. She deserves respect. And she deserves respect. She's an ambassador. She's in the times that we live in. She's out there being who she is. So we should respect people like that. The noble person, a shurafa in its essence is the descendants of the Prophet of Allah alayhi wasallam. So the shurafa, they say a sharif fulan, or sharif ad-din, or whatever it might be. Generally those people, they're from the descendants of the Prophet alayhi wasallam. It's even said that if a man is married to a woman, if a husband's wife, she's from the Sada, from the prophetic lineage, that if she enters a room, he should stand for her out of respect for the Prophet of Allah. That if she wants to leave the house, he should get her shoes for her and set them down so she can get her shoes. And then he even shouldn't raise his voice over her voice, ikraman wa ihtiraman wa ijlalan, out of respect and reverence for the Prophet of Allah, because she's his descendant. It's from the adib, from the etiquettes of dealing with the people. And there's one chair there. So even if we were all scholars, and an average, this is what the scholars say, and an average Muslim who was a descendant of the Prophet of Allah, he would be the person, or she would be the person that would sit in that chair rather than the scholars, out of ikram and respect for the Prophet of Allah. It's not that anyone's better than anyone, and the Prophet has mentioned it. La fadla li'arabi ala ajami. There's no fadl, there's no favor of an Arab over a non-Arab, or a black over a white, or whatever the case might be. The only difference is taqwa, whoever has the most cautiousness in their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And another hadith, the Prophet said, even if my daughter Fatima, who's she's the Sayyidat Ahlul Jannah, Sayyidat Nisa Ahlul Jannah. She's the head of all women in paradise, the queen maybe if you want to say, princess, whatever it might be. Can't say that word, eh, princess. This is the queen.
Liege lady.
Alright, the liege lady, if you want to be technical. Of all the people in all the women in Jannah, he said if she was to steal, I would have cut her hand off. She would have to face the punishment. But all other noble people, depending on what they've done to become noble, and look, that is in a sense to the Muslims. But like for example, we've got these guys these days that don't stand up for judges in court, or they don't. Like, what do you mean? The Prophet ﷺ said, "Anzilun nas fi manazilihim." Put people. He didn't say Muslims. Alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, put people in their respective places. If that's the adab for doing that, then you do. Stand for the judge. It's not haram to do that. Although they rely on a hadith and this and that. But the hadith doesn't mean that it's haram to do it. That's not what it means. The hadith doesn't mean that. It means it shouldn't become obligatory for people to do it. But if you do it out of respect for somebody, there's nothing wrong with doing that. So, and the one whose hair has... So someone, in other words, who's lived their whole life doing the right thing. I saw one the other day doing a marriage, an old bloke, a really simple, basic guy, but you can tell his whole life is just, doing the right thing and praying and fasting and doing dhikr and reading Qur'an and doing khidmah and helping people out. Those guys are barakah. The Prophet ﷺ said that the best of you, the one who's the best of you, is the one man tala umruhu wa hasura amala. The one whose age is become old in age, and that person's deeds are pious, are righteous deeds. So we have to respect those people. That's why when we studied and we were all students and someone more senior would come along, people, even though they were in the front line, they'd let that person pray in the front line out of respect for that individual. So we have to respect our elders, even though we may not like it because everyone's equal and all these things. It says, وَإِيَّاكَ أَن تُرَوِّ أَحَدًا مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ أَوْ تَخِيفَ أَوْ تَسْتَهْزِئَ بِهِ أَوْ تَسْخِرَ منه أو تنظر إليه بعين الاستحقار فإن هذا كله من الأخلاق المشؤومة والأفعال المذمومة وقد قال صلى الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم بحسب امرئ من الشر أن يحقر أخاه المسلم. Never frighten or alarm a Muslim. Never mock, ridicule, or despise a Muslim. For these are part of ominous and blameworthy behavior. The Prophet ﷺ has said, it is sufficient evil for a man that he should despise his brother, Muslim brother, or brother Muslim. Okay? So these are also things that, in essence, they relate to states of the heart. In reality, that's what they... Because if you don't like someone, it's very few people that come up to someone and let them know they don't like them. Not many people have that kind of character. But what it is that internally they won't like someone, and they might do things like someone talks to them, yeah, thanks mate, or they despise them or put them down in a way that's not so obvious, or they don't talk. Oh, are you talking to me? We've got experience in these things from how we were young when I was with Lao Zhou. All the things that when older people, that was the generation we grew up in when older believed. How people used to put people down. That was their forte. He says, so don't to worry, like cause the person to fret or to be perturbed. So that means those things they do on YouTube, they scare people. We shouldn't do that. It's haram actually to do that. Because what if the person's got a heart condition or something, and you're going to take responsibility, or they throw their arm up and it gets cut off, or bad things can happen when people aren't paying attention. They think it's funny. I don't know how people think it's funny. And tastahzi bi, to make fun of someone. So pick, oh, this person's got a big nose or a big head or a small head or big ears, or they're short or they're tall, or they speak funny, or whatever it might be. Okay, so it's to particular is to, what does he say, mock or ridicule. Both of those things are the same sort of thing. أو تسخر منه. Again, it's the same connotation.
That's the ridiculing, yeah, maskhara.
In the maskhara, yeah. To ridicule the person, if they did something wrong, to make it worse than it is. Oh, look at this person, they can't even eat properly when they're chewing, they make a lot of noise, or whatever the case might be. So, أو تنظر إليه بعين الاستحقار, or to look at the person that one is to look down on someone, basically. Al-istihqar is to humiliate, to shame, or to degrade. So look at someone in a shameful way. Oh, look at subhanallah today, subhanallah. There was this guy on the same thing. There was a guy, he didn't look like he was an Arab or a Muslim or anything. He was covered in dirt and he was begging for money. And then I was walking behind this guy and he gave him some money, gave him a lot of money. And the guy goes, Jazakallahu khairan, like a full Arabic. And then the guy said, what iyakum. Like the guy that received the money, you would never think that he was a Muslim or anything. I was like, wow, subhanallah. You never know. You never know. And he was sitting there, it was all, I saw him when he opened his hand, it had all dirt all over it. And then he said something else to him in Arabic as well. And they said, Assalamu alaikum, firstly, when the guy gave him the money. And then he said, Jazakullahu khairan, full fasha, full proper pronunciation. He didn't even look like he was an Arab at all. Who knows who the bloke is? Who knows who the bloke is? The Ash'ath Aghbar. لو أقسم على الله لأبر. The Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, Ash'ath, disheveled, Aghbar, dirty. Someone is dirty, sitting on the ground, you don't know what. If he says, Ya Allah, Allah says, what do you want? Straight away. Could be the bloke. And me personally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me, so maybe this guy's a junkie, maybe he's alcoholic. But when he says, just salamu alaykum, it didn't sound like he was at all. And then he said, Jazakallahu khaira. It just, blew me right away. It was subhanallah. So, not that I was like looking down at him, but people, they fall into situations, like it's common, unfortunately, for people who are asking for money to have some substance abuse problems, or more specifically, psychological issues, mental health issues. But that doesn't mean we should look down on them. It could be me there. It could be any one of us there. Just one thing that went wrong in our lives, or some sort of a chemical reaction in our minds. We don't know. And particularly if they're a believer, then we shouldn't have that impression of them. فَإِنَّ هَذَا كُلُّهُ مِنْ أَخْلَاقَ الْمَشْؤُومَةِ. So this is from the attributes. I didn't even mention that in the translation. So these are from the attributes al-mash'uma. Al-sha'am is to lead people to.
Yes, the ominous. These are part of ominous and blameworthy behavior.
Ominous. Oh, yeah, he did. Sorry, my bad. He did mention it. These are part of ominous or blameworthy. So, ash-sha'am or al-mash'uma is almost depressive. I mean, I said you used the word ominous. It's like when a person starts to put people down and ridicule people, they place themselves on a pedestal. And when they place themselves on a pedestal, when that's the next part about takabbur, but we'll talk about it. So it leads to basically a person becoming haughty, a person becoming prideful, pride-worthy, whatever it is, full of pride. Arrogant. Jazakallahu khairan. A person becoming arrogant. And al-af'al al-madhmuma, it's from the deeds that are blameworthy. In other words, sinful. When a person acts that way, it's a sinful way to act. And I wanted to finish it before I summed it up. He said, alayhi salatu wasalam, it's sufficient. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ وَكَفَى بِالْمَرِي إِثْمًا, another hadith, and يَحْقِرَ أَخَاهُ, which is the same meaning. بِحَسْبِ مَرْءٍ من الشر أن يحقر أخاه المسلم. And the other one, the one I said, is more general because it says أن يحقر أخاه, the brother. In other words, could be a Muslim, could be a non-Muslim. That's enough of a sin. Why? Because it leads to arrogance, leads to haughtiness, which is the quality only of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when a person starts to put themselves on that pedestal, they start to decrease in the sight of Allah. They start to become less significant in the sight of Allah. And Allah, you never know what Allah Azza wa Jal may do to that individual that's in that state. So the essence of that, in particular to the believer, Allah's created that person the believer. Allah loves that person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got a purpose for that individual. And if the person isn't a Muslim, well, they're a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't know. There's a classic saying that says, once we know anybody's story, then we can come to love them. If you don't know the person, he's so-and-so, she's so-and-so. But once you find out and hear what the person... Even happened to me one time when it came to... a friend of mine is a criminal lawyer. And he was dealing with pedophiles when I was a believer. And he was just telling me the things they were doing. And I'm going, these guys, man, they should be killed straight away. And then he said to me, look, I know what you're saying. He said, most of them have been abused as children. And that just made me think, well, most of them didn't become that way because they wanted to. It's because of the circumstances in their lives. Not for me to judge in that scenario at all. So that's when we start to understand about a person and what they've been through. Even a pedophile, like the most despicable thing that most of us could think of in terms of human behaviour. But when we look at what happened to them or their story or how they ended up in that situation, then it's not that we accept what they do. No way. We don't accept it. Yet we can see the circumstances that led them to become that, and so that gives us some empathy in that sense, or at least some understanding to their situation. And so, who are we, who's anyone to judge another human being when Allah has created human beings in the best possible form? That's about the physical things. Created the best. So how can we how can an individual make fun of or ridicule a person for their physical features? How can we do that? Because Allah created them in the best possible way, the best possible manner. How can we do that? Or we ridicule people about their actions, or the way they speak. All those things are khalqi anyway, that's speaking. They're all the things about the way that Allah created that individual. Who are we to criticize that individual? Who are we to make fun of them or to ridicule them or to put them down? That's not our role. Our role is to elevate them. Our role is to give them the capacity, the tools to bring themselves up, to become better human beings, to become better people, to become better Muslims, inshallah, better servants of ibadillah, servants of Allah. So once we start doing that, then when again it's like jealousy, we start putting ourselves in the category of ilahiyah, of divinity. And of course, that's from the kaba'ir, from the major sins. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So we'll finish the chapter off, inshallah ta'ala, tawfiq min Allah next week. And so 2 months ago, we started speaking about Ramadan. We mentioned the hadith, Allahumma barik lana bi Rajab wa Sha'ban wa balighna Ramadan. And we said that 1 month is, we said that we've got these 2 months to get our act together, start doing better deeds, so that we, inshallah azza wa jal, can benefit from the month of Ramadan, because we said it's a preparation. You can't expect to run a marathon if you never do any training. You can't expect to sit an exam and pass if you never study. And so we said it's the same thing for Ramadan now, where this is inshallah today or tomorrow, depending on the moon and if it's local or world or whatever. But Sha'ban will start either this evening or tomorrow. If you're Turkish, already started, I think. Turks already started today. So it's a chance for us to take account of ourselves in terms of our progression to the month of Ramadan before Ramadan has even started. So inshallah, if we were of the people that made intention in the beginning of Rajab to change our deeds, to change our routines, to change our habits, to change our ibadah, to increase our ibadah, and we haven't, then unfortunately we haven't progressed properly to the month of Ramadan. Yet if we have, then we have this month to increase it again. So we mentioned things like fasting. That some of us at least 3 days in a month. If we're not fasting 3 days in a month, we're not following the prophetic tradition. 3 only. If we're fasting better than that, Monday and Thursday, and better than that is Monday and Thursday, and the white days and the black days, and the best of all fasting is 1 day on, 1 day off. Probably not good for us, 1 day on, 1 day off. It's too much. You can leave that. But at least Monday and Thursday, depending on what's going on, because the days are short. They go very quickly. So if we haven't done that, then Sha'ban is a chance to renew that. The Prophet ﷺ, they say, Ibn Abbas narrates the hadith, he says that, I never saw the Prophet in Sha'ban, he would fast until we never thought he was going to stop fasting. And on some days, he would break his fast until we thought he was never going to fast, except for Monday and Thursday. So when they asked him about this, the Prophet ﷺ said, Sha'ban is the month, the middle of Sha'ban, Nisfi Sha'ban, the 15th, when all our deeds for the year get taken to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the same thing for the Mondays and Thursdays, that our deeds are shown to Allah. That's the weekly deeds and the yearly deeds and Sha'ban. So the Prophet said, he said that I'd like that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees my deeds and accounts for my deeds when I'm fasting. Because Allah loves the fasting person. He says, in the Siyam, innahu li wa ana ajzi bi. Siyam, fasting is for Allah. He says, it belongs to me. And I'm the one who gives the reward, which means the reward is much bigger than any of us can imagine, or much bigger than any of us can comprehend, or even calculate. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ would want that. So we've only got that 1 month. We're all thinking, yeah, whatever. But if we haven't got our act together in Rajab, we feel like we've already failed for Ramadan. That's how we should feel. If you were planning to read 1 book or whatever it was in a month of, in a particular time for your exam, and you had another month to read another book, and you hadn't read the first book, how would you feel? You feel like you're a failure. But you're not, inshallah ta'ala, because you've still got a month to arrange your affairs, to change your routine, to prepare. It's only a month. It's only a month. It goes quickly. It was just like yesterday we were talking about Rajab, and the beginning of Rajab, and the entrance of the month of Ramadan, inshallah. This is a serious time for us. This is a time when we should be spending less time with our friends, spending less time on Facebook, slowly cutting it down rather than just going cold turkey. Slowly telling people, well, Ramadan's coming up. So start talking about it. That should be pretty much the number 1 topic of conversation starter, icebreaker, whatever, for Muslims anyway. Don't talk. Even you can tell non-Muslims. Why not? Why not? The non-Muslims know more about Islam than we think. I had a client recently who divorced and all these things, and we sent her off to another lawyer. And I was telling the other lawyer, this lady, unfortunately she's from overseas. She's very traditional in the family. There's a cult. They're cultural Muslims and they're cultural Lebanese and all these things. First thing the other lawyer said to me when she saw, really, is their cultural? She doesn't wear hijab. First thing she said to me. And then when I told the lady that, the client, she's like, do they know about that? Of course they know. Of course they know. The reason being that if she's wearing hijab, it makes the other solicitor's job easier, because then it fits into the whole story that we're telling, what they call the case theory. Fits into the case theory because cultural, that, Muslims, she's lived in a particular way her whole life, she doesn't know it. And it's true, she'd never been to the city. She didn't know how to get to the city, this poor lady. Never once been to the city. And her whole life, she's got no business there, which makes sense, right? So of course she does, but when a person doesn't look that way, straight away the non-Muslims know. So they know that Ramadan's coming. Even some of my friends ask me, is Ramadan coming up soon? Even in Easter they were asking me. So even for non-Muslims it's a conversation starter. But in particular for Muslims, that's the thing that we should be focusing on now. How much Qur'an have I read in the last 10 months? And as we said, that the scholars said that Qur'an should be completed twice in a year. Once in the month of Ramadan and once in the other 11 months of the year. If we haven't, then we should start reading as much as we can, inshallah, so we can finish it. And then that reading to finish it will prepare us for, inshallah, doing our own reading in Ramadan. And if we can't read, then at least we should listen to it. We should listen to a whole Qur'an. I know we've got MP3 players on our phone and we're listening to whatever's funky these days. We're listening to whatever we're listening to. But it's all right. Bring some Qur'an. Get me Shawi or Abdul Basit or any of these scholars and listen to it. any of these little Qur'an, any of these reciters, and listen to it. And then when you stop, pause it, and then come back to it. I don't know if you can do that, but you should be able to. Come back to it. And then there's heaps of apps where you can just download the app and then listen to the Qur'an. And I'm sure you guys know 10 different ways that I haven't even thought of to do it. So this is the time to do it, inshallah azza wa jal. This is the time to focus. Every day in this month that's passing is a day, inshallah azza wa jal, that we can benefit from. And the reason why one might notice that at this time of year, one feels lackadaisical and one feels lethargic. One feels like they don't really want to pray sunnah anymore. Why? Because the batteries are at the last point. They're on that, the bleeping part where they're blinking and they're red and they're carrying on, and because it's been 10 or 11 months since we had Ramadan. Ramadan's the recharge for the whole year. Ramadan is the recharge for the whole year. In the month of Ramadan, it's such a big boost. All the blessings that are out there, the shayateen are gone, etc., which we'll talk about. But that's why we're feeling so. We got to get back to that routine, because if we come into Ramadan running, inshallah, or at least walking or at least jogging, then we'll get a greater benefit. Then next year, inshallah, our deeds will be higher. Our deeds will increase. Our ibadat, our worshipping to Allah Azza wa Jal will be totally different. So if you feel slack, it's okay. It's normal. Your batteries are running down. But get back to the routine. Look at your intentions from last year from Ramadan, whether you wrote it in your phone or whatever, because we all did that, bi'idhnillah. And so, I was going to say that, in my intentions, I wrote that after Isha, I wasn't just going to pray 2 rak'at of sunnah, I was going to pray 4. Now do it. Go back to it. Go back to it. And make sure the intention is, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get nearness to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.